Hey guys, how the hell are you? Today we are going to do an all-new unbiased gear review on this, the Jackson Pro Series HT7FM Misha Mansoor signature model. So first, let's go over the specs of this instrument. We have bolt-on construction. We have a basswood body with what is described as a flame maple top, but I'm willing to bet it's a veneer. I'd be really surprised if it's really a top. We have a maple neck with an ebony fretboard, 24 frets, locking Jackson die-cast tuners, a Jackson HT7 fixed bridge, and Jackson MM1 humbuckers, master volume, master tone with a push-pull coil split, and a 5-way selector switch. So getting right into the quality control of this thing, I was pleasantly surprised and pleasantly not surprised by this instrument. So pleasantly surprised being that all my experiences with this guitar up to this point have been in various chain music stores where they have suffered extreme guitar store neglect, so to speak. Picked them up off the wall, there was so many problems, the frets just kind of popping off the sides, in various states of just griminess all over them. This one arrived brand spanking new. It honestly shows. It's a much better instrument than those ones that were at the brick and mortar locations that I was checking these out at previously. The fretwork is actually not bad in terms of the fret dressing. So looking along the sides, there's absolutely no sharp edges whatsoever to speak of. It's not the prettiest to look at. There is a rolled off edge on the fretboard, which is nice and adds for comfort, but at the same time it's there's a little bit of tool marking in there. It's not the nicest job of rolling off the fretboard edge I've ever seen, but this is an inexpensive Indonesian made instrument, so I'm not expecting it to be an incredible perfect guitar. Moving on, I like the lumen-lay side dots that they've got on here. The nut is nice and flush up along the edge of the fretboard and the edge of the neck. Before I move on, something I did forget with regards to the frets, there are a handful of dead spots on this guitar. It's not to an extreme degree, maybe like 2 or 3 instances where this one string at this one fret is buzzing a little bit. It just could be a little bit nicer and neater there. There again, it is a cheap Indonesian-made instrument, not necessarily to be confused with the $2,700 USA-made Jacksons. looking at the tuners. The tuners, I mean, they function. I'll be honest with you, the tuning stability of this thing leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. You know, maybe I've just been spoiled lately with a lot of these instruments that have been holding up really, really nicely with Evertunes, with a little bit nicer bridges on the end, with a little bit nicer tuning machines up here at the headstock. And these are relatively fresh strings, but they have been nicely stretched out. And they've been broken in. I've been playing this thing for a while now. Speaking of fresh strings, when I did the string change, a lot of these little ferrules did pop out. So they are not necessarily the most secure back there. The other thing that's not so much secure, as I'm sure you guys saw in the demo song when I was playing the lead, this thing just pops right off. Not the most secure on there. What's extremely secure, and too secure in fact, is the volume pot, which is like way the heck down there, and there's definitely some spots where it doesn't really turn so much. Easy fix though, you just take off the knob, you move it just up the shaft on the pot a little bit, and that would solve it. It's just kind of weird that it came from the factory like that, like someone didn't notice that. There's other problems with relation to that volume knob. We'll get to that in a minute. The bridge is actually surprisingly nice, notwithstanding the fact that maybe that has something that's contributing to the tuning stability, but it's low profile, it's comfortable, there's no like real sharp metal edges on this thing, and I kind of like the look of it. It kind of looks like just a cheapy hip shot wannabe, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A nice appointment that's on this guitar, if you can see right underneath the fretboard, between the fretboard and the neck pickup, there is a spoke wheel truss rod adjustment, so don't need to sit here and take off a truss rod cover, stick in the Allen wrench, and just give quick turns right there. Easy adjustability. The playability, as far as the comfort, you know, it feels like kind of an archtop RG, rather comfortable, rather balanced, sits rather nicely when you're playing in whatever position you're playing in. Up against you, the tummy cut is in a nice location, and I actually really like the access to the upper frets that the beveling and the actual joint of the neck offers you. So this is definitely something that could be an instrument designed for shredders on a budget, in my opinion. So moving on to how... Well, I'd love to move on to how this thing sounds, but as you can hear, we've got a little bit of an issue to talk about, and that would be the volume knob. So this is, believe it or not, the volume turned all the way down. Not so muted, is it? So, maybe want to look into the quality control of how these instruments leave the factory, and also might want to look into the quality control of the individual components going into that electronics cavity, because that is kind of something that could be extremely, extremely aggravating. So anyways, moving on to how this thing sounds, I'm going to level with you. This being a Pro Series instrument from Jackson, made in Indonesia, I was not expecting these pickups to sound great at all, especially given the fact that the signature artist that this instrument was designed by is kind of known for using bare knuckles, and everyone knows that I don't gel with bare knuckles at all. So I was not holding out high hopes for these things at all, and I gotta be honest with you, I'm a little bit surprised. not really bad at all, to be honest with you. This is going in through my high watt super high 50, and then from there it's going into a 2 notes captor and then 2 notes wall of sound plug-in, and I am actually getting some goddamn usable tones out of this thing. This thing is doing a great job with modern metal stuff. Maybe not so much the gent. I don't know, this will be my weak attempt at gent. But, I mean, it does modern metal stuff pretty well. It does extreme metal stuff pretty well. It's got a nice, full sound with palm mutes on that bridge pickup. One thing that doesn't exactly sound all that great to me, though, is the coil split, which to me doesn't sound very coil split. I don't know, I'm not really hearing any sort of tonal difference there at all. Now, as much as I like how the bridge pickup sounds, the neck pickup to me leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, it sounds okay. It sounds ever so slightly mushy, especially depending on which amp sim or which amp you're plugging it into. You know, and that can even be said for the bridge pickup. When I got this thing originally, I still had my Randall Satan at the time, and plugging this guitar into that, it sounded pretty bad. So I think this is definitely something where plugging it into a rig that has great tone inherently is definitely helping. So what is my final verdict on this instrument? Well, I'll be honest, it's a little bit of a hit and miss with me on this thing. Do I think it's worth the money? At $899, no. No, this thing definitely plays a lot cheaper than what the price tag would suggest. I felt like the pickups were sort of surprising, but I feel like the feel itself leaves a bit to be desired. I mean, when I first picked up this thing, one of the first things I noticed was the finish on the back of the neck and how cheap it felt. This is definitely a case where they definitely skimped on the finish for the back of the neck. It's one of those kind of nasty satin finishes that, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it was necessarily like buffed or even sanded down literally at all. Adding that to how lackluster these pickups sounded with a few rigs that I was playing this thing through initially, and this was just kind of a woefully uninspiring instrument. Definitely something where it took a long time for me to get this video done, and not necessarily because, you know, I couldn't get around to it. It was more so because every time I picked up this thing, I just didn't really want to play it. I feel like there's definitely a bunch of you guys out there that would disagree with me on that, and that's fine. By all means, if you get your chance to play one of these things, run it through a gamut of tests, run it through several different amps, see if you really gel with it. You know, play a few different styles on this thing, see if you dig it for any of them. Myself personally, I'm a little unimpressed. So Arnold, what are you drinking today? I am so glad you asked. Let's go to the beer cooler. Okay, so I've had this bottle for a little bit now. I'm looking very forward to actually cracking it open, seeing how it is. This is from American Solera. This is Man-Made Earthquake. This is a Belgian style triple that is aged in oak barrels, I believe. No, I'm sorry, aged in cognac and whiskey barrels. It is 15% ABV, so this is going to be a heavyweight. Pours a very, very rich golden color with a white head. Some kind of citrusy notes when you first smell it. Ooh, that's nice. Extremely boozy. Wow. That's probably one of the booziest barrel-aged beers I've had in a while. That is, ooh, I'm getting a lot of pinch right back here. Oh. Wow. That's actually got some kick to it. It's kind of funny, like you can kind of taste beyond the booze a little bit that this thing would honestly be kind of a really, really smooth triple if it didn't have the booze in there. The booze is a little bit overpowering, but at the same time, this is definitely something that you can savor, though. It tastes very, very good. I'm enjoying this. So that's it for me. Leave a comment in the comments section below. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, more videos to come. Also find me on many other forms of social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch. I'm kind of all over the place. So thanks so much. Until the next video.